Are you prepared to travel back in time and investigate the intriguing yet disgusting world of ancient Rome? The Romans certainly understood how to push the boundaries of what was deemed normal, from their peculiar hygiene routines to their peculiar eating habits. In this video, we'll be counting down the top 10 most disgusting facts about ancient Roman life that will leave you wondering how they ever managed to survive. So grab a bucket and get ready to delve into the grimy details of Roman history. Fact number 1. Dirty toilets. The ancient Romans loved their public bathhouses, but they weren't always the cleanest places. The baths were often overcrowded and the water was rarely changed, leading to the spread of disease and parasites. The Romans believed that bathing was essential for good health, but their hygiene practices were far from what we consider clean today. In fact, it's said that some bathhouses were so contaminated that they were shut down by the authorities. Archaeologists believe they were rarely, if ever, cleaned because they have been found to be filled with parasites. Fact number 2. Sponge on a stick. The Romans had a very different approach to hygiene compared to modern standards. Instead of using toilet paper, they used a sponge on a stick called a tersorium, which was shared among many people. It's hard to imagine using a communal sponge to clean oneself, but for the Romans, it was a common practice. They would dip the sponge in a bucket of salt water and then use it to clean themselves after using the toilet. The sponge was then rinsed and put back in the bucket for the next person to use. Fact number 3. Exotic and disgusting foods. The Romans were known for their love of food and would often indulge in lavish feasts. They ate a lot of meat, but also enjoyed vegetables, fruits, and grains. However, some of their culinary choices were definitely not for the faint of heart. Flamingo tongue, for example, was considered a delicacy and was often served at banquets. Dormice were also a popular dish, and were even raised in special pots for the purpose. And then there was garum, a sauce made from fermented fish that was used to flavor many dishes. The smell of garum was so strong that it was said to be detectable from miles away. Fact number 4. The Vomitorium Myth. The Romans were known for their extravagant feasts, but they had a rather unusual way of dealing with overeating. They would visit the vomitorium, a room designed specifically for vomiting, so they could make room for more food. The vomitorium was not, as some people believe, a room for vomiting after a meal. Rather, it was an architectural feature of amphitheaters and other large buildings that allowed for easy exit of crowds. However, the myth of the vomitorium as a place for overindulgence has persisted in popular culture. Seneca said that at banquets, Romans would eat until they couldn't eat anymore, and then they would vomit so they could keep eating. Fact number 5. Unusual medical treatments. The Romans had a somewhat primitive approach to medicine, with some of their treatments involving the use of leeches, bloodletting, and even drinking gladiator blood, which they believed had healing properties. The Romans believed in the concept of humors, which stated that the body was made up of 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness was believed to be caused by an imbalance of these fluids, and treatments were aimed at restoring balance. Bloodletting, for example, was used to remove excess blood from the body, while drinking gladiator blood was thought to have a strengthening effect. Several Roman authors report that people collected the blood of dead gladiators and sold it as medicine. Fact number 6. Urine as a multi-purpose tool. Urine may seem like an unusual and unsanitary substance to use for various purposes, but the Romans found it to be a versatile tool for many tasks. One of the most common uses of urine was in tanning leather, where it was used to help remove hair and soften the hides. It was also used to clean clothes and as a cleaning agent, as it contained ammonia. Additionally, it was used in teeth whitening, and some Romans even believed that urine had medicinal properties. In ancient Rome, selling urine was such a big deal that the government set up special taxes just for urine sales. Some people made a living by doing nothing but collecting urine. Some people would get it from public toilets. Others went door to door with a big bucket and asked people to fill it up. While it may seem disgusting to us today, urine was readily available and had some practical uses in ancient Roman society. Fact number 7. Filthy streets. Roman streets were notoriously dirty and filled with all kinds of waste. Garbage, animal excrement, and even human waste were often thrown into the streets, which created a breeding ground for disease and pests. The Romans did have a rudimentary system of public sanitation, with street cleaners known as rockers tasked with keeping the streets clean. However, their efforts were often ineffective, and the streets remained filthy. Fact number 8. Obscene secrets of Pompeii. When the volcanic eruption buried Pompeii, it preserved the town and its artifacts for archaeologists to uncover. However, what they found was so explicit that they kept it hidden from public view for many years. Pompeii was filled with erotic art that was so lewd that it was locked in a secret room. From statues of Pan sexually assaulting a goat to explicit frescoes, the town's art was full of obscenity. Prostitution was also rampant in Pompeii, with even the street tiles containing phallic symbols pointing the way to the nearest brothel. Despite the passage of time, the town's graphic nature still shocks and fascinates visitors to this day. Fact number 9: energy drinks made from goat dung were popular among charioteers. Since the Romans didn't have band-aids, they came up with other ways to fix wounds. Pliny the Elder says that people in Rome used goat dung to heal cuts and scrapes. Pliny said that the best goat dung was collected in the spring and dried, but that in an emergency, fresh goat dung would do the trick. It gave the charioteers strength. They either boiled goat dung in vinegar or ground it into a powder and put it in their drinks. When they were tired, they drank it to give them a little boost. This wasn't even a way out for the poor. Pliny says that no one liked drinking goat dung more than Emperor Nero. Fact number 10: women rubbed their faces with dead skin cells of gladiators. The lost gladiators were turned into medicine for people who had seizures, while the winners were turned into aphrodisiacs. In Roman times, soap was hard to find, so athletes cleaned themselves by putting oil on their bodies and using a tool called a strigil to scrape off dead skin cells. Most people just threw away their dead skin cells, but gladiators didn't do that. Their sweat and skin scrapings were put in a bottle and sold to women as an aphrodisiac. This was often made into a facial cream. Women would rub the cream all over their faces in the hopes that the dead skin cells of a gladiator would make men find them irresistible. In conclusion, these disgusting facts about ancient Roman life are a reminder that while we may look back on history with rose-tinted glasses, the reality was often far more unpalatable. From using urine for everything from tanning leather to cleaning clothes, to the obscene art and sexual practices that were common in Pompeii, the Romans had some truly revolting habits. However, looking beyond the disgust, we can also see a resourceful and inventive society that made the most of what they had. Exploring these facts gives us a glimpse into a very different world and a greater appreciation for our modern-day comforts and hygiene practices.